an initiative I'd like to launch here. It's a kind of philosophical, theoretical, ethical. It's approaching the issue of ownership, of whether or not one species, the human species, has the right to own Earth and its resources, its natural phenomenon. My personal feeling is that we don't have the right to do this, and that what has happened in society so far, civilization, is that people, races, through law, through monetary systems, etc., have taken from one another. And you have, so there's rich and there's poor people. But that's only an issue if people do actually have the right to own property, to own a herd of cattle, for example, to own a pool of water or a pool of oil. We have a scenario now where Coca-Cola is buying water tables. We have scenarios where there are, 10% of people holding 90% of the wealth, and the 90% of poor people only have 10%. This kind of ratio. Does humanity have the right to own these things to begin with? I feel not. And secondly, if we are in a democratic system and 90% of the people believe that this is unfair, and if we have a better alternative, in theory, through democracy, people could vote for this better alternative and free society from this ownership. It's a possibility. First, we need a better alternative. And secondly, need the idea of that alternative to get out there. And I don't know if a profit-based media would want to support such an initiative. And another one is that the people who do have at the moment are not going to let it go easily. What we're going to see, I believe, in the very near future is the banks foreclosing on a heck of a lot of mortgages and owning the land. This can be resolved through this ownership consensus. What do you call something where people vote? A referendum. A referendum on ownership. I think that's perhaps the title of this initiative. A referendum on ownership.
Well, of course, immediately that would threaten a huge number of people with a vested interest who do own property. I see massive problems there in the Western world. Most people are conditioned and educated under the concept of private property. And of course, in the Western tradition, the Judeo-Christian tradition, it's all legitimized by the book of Genesis in the Bible, which gives mankind the divine right to exploit and use for his benefit all the resources and other species on the planet. So that is a problem. Like you say, the media, the corporate-owned media, are not in any shape or form going to give that any oxygen or condone it. It's basically a question of education. You have to start with the children. If the children can be educated out of this outmoded and dangerous and unsustainable mode of being, well, there's hope. I see education as the only true hope. Education for the future generations. Education on triple bottom line, on intergenerational equity, social justice, sustainability, and putting the environment first above all else. We're replacing the whole concept of living in an economy with living in an ecology. Ecology over economy. So that's it in a nutshell.
So there's an alternative to this ownership thing.
Well, there is, yeah, in theory.
It's
getting from here to there in practice.
One other thing for questioning the ownership, there's land, of course. There's also ownership of knowledge, ownership of science.
IP, huge problem.
Ownership
Patents.
of, patents.
Biopiracy. Privatising genes, privatising for profit the human genome. That's a huge, huge issue.
It's
locking up the genome for private profit from. It's the common heritage of humanity, but it's been pirated away by corporations for private profit. It's insane what is actually happening under the free market system. So.
Free market system. Free for the scammers to take everything that they can. The nice people
really
give, and the greedy people take.
It's an Orwellian phrase, the free market system. Orwellian in terms of truth equals peace, truth equals war, lies equals
perfect information.
Knowledge. Orwellian doublespeak propaganda. It's not free for anyone really. It's the unfree market.
So this idea of ownership, I question it. I don't think we have the right. We're one species on a planet that goes potentially forever, and humanity, through privatization, through corporations, feels that we have the right to take everything right now, and we don't. And you don't, and I don't. And we need to share with the other species. This is nature. This is the world beyond our corporate education. So we need to do something about this. We need to free the world from this rat race, this commercial, industrialized, civilized, greedy, selfish system. And we need help to do this. Contact for help and initiatives, ideas on how to transition this. I feel non-profit is a significant one. People, through their purchasing power, can buy from non-profit instead of business, and the after-cost profits goes towards environmental, humanitarian non-profit, which goes to serve everything. Share, care. If you do own land, perhaps make it available for community projects. You can still own it on paper if you are so inclined, but make it at least usable.
I see it basically as, realistically looking at it, it's a question of generational change. There's no way that the older generations are going to transcend their conditioning, but if younger generations can be educated out of unsustainable value systems, well, then there's hope. See, everything springs, all human systems, all societies, all cultures, all value systems spring from an idea some person had at one point in space and time. Yeah? Whether it's Jesus, Socrates, Plato, Buddha, Muhammad, Marx, whatever, they all sprang from one person having an idea. It's the power of ideas. Ideas take off like a meme, like a cultural gene, and spread. They go viral because their time has come in that specific context, the historical time-space context. Some ideas take off because time's right for them. I think we're approaching a time of such a paradigm shift pretty soon, if not now. In terms of the economic meltdown, the environmental meltdown, all the signs are there. We need a new paradigm, ASAP. The old one's almost destroyed us. It's almost destroyed the environment. So how much time do we have left? Nobody knows, but I've got a feeling that it isn't. It isn't centuries. It could be decades. It could be just a few years. So we have to act with urgency, I guess.